Welcome to another episode of the Washington Retirement Planning Podcast. I'm your host, Ethan Meikle, and here we specialize in talking about your Washington State retirement benefits, the ways to utilize them, and ways to reduce your overall tax bill. In today's episode, we're talking about things you need to consider before retiring early from the teacher retirement system or the public employees retirement system. So we'll be going over just a couple of key details you need to keep in mind if you're considering an early retirement from these programs. After we discuss that, the listener question that we'll be answering today is, what is the maximum amount of SERS credits that I can accumulate? And how does that affect my retirement income? So I'll be diving into that question towards the end of today's episode. If you haven't done so yet, feel free to join our free retirement planning community. The link is in the description of the show notes below. On there, I'm recording a bunch of exclusive content for members of the community only to dive deeper into all of your Washington retirement planning benefits and ways you can be better prepared for the future. So feel free to join, and I'll be releasing content and more videos inside that exclusive group shortly. So when you're thinking about retiring early, the first thing you want to check up on is your state pension plan. So remember that you're able to receive benefits in full at age 65 or at age 62 if you have 30 years of service. So if you met one of those ages, you can walk out the door with full benefits. But what happens if you want to go before that? Well, then we have to start looking at what the penalty should be if you wanted to collect early. Now remember that you can actually retire and choose not to collect your benefits, and there's no penalty for that. So if you wanted to retire from your school district and go ahead and do something else, live off your other investment accounts, then you can totally do that, and there's no penalty on your state pension plan. And the penalty only applies if you want to collect your pension earlier than the full retirement age. So in order to collect your benefit early, you have to have at least 20 years of service with Washington State. If you don't have 30 years of service with Washington State yet, then every year you take your money before age 65 is going to be an increased penalty. So the earlier you take it, the higher the penalty. Now the penalties for not having 30 years of service is pretty significant and often doesn't work out for most people. For those of you that already have 30 years of service, collecting your pension before age 62 will still incur penalties, but at a reduced rate. So for example, if 62, you're entitled to 100% of your benefit. At age 61, you'd get 98% of your benefit or only a 2% penalty. At age 60, it'd only be a 5% penalty or 95% of your benefits. So you can see, even though you're going 2 years early, they're not really taking all that much money. So don't let the word penalty scare you away from possibly collecting it early. Now, if you're not quite to those ages yet and it may not make sense to take that penalty, then you can always just leave your pension where it is and just start drawing from your Plan 3 retirement account or the 403b. Remember, you have access to those upon separation of service. So as long as you're over the age of 55 and separated, not working with Washington State, you have access to your Plan 3 bucket or those 403b plans or even the DCP for that matter. You can choose to draw money off of those accounts to get you by for a while so you can avoid taking such a big penalty or any kind of penalty at all. So just another option out there. Before you make any kind of move like this, be sure to consult a financial advisor so they can go over a plan and look over it with you so you can be sure that this is the right strategy for you and you're not going to regret it down the road or end up paying way more taxes than you expected to. The other consideration when you're going to retire early is looking at your Social Security. Many people choose to take their Social Security at age 62, the earliest they can get it. But remember, that's the lowest benefit you're able to receive. Your Social Security has something called full retirement age, and it's going to be between 66 to 67, depending on the year you were born. Every year you collect earlier than that full retirement age, it's considered a reduced rate, or really you're taking a penalty on that. Now, for someone that had a full retirement age of age 66 and wanted to take it at age 62, you're only getting about 75% of your full benefit. Or in other words, it's a 25% penalty, yet people do it all the time. So don't let the state's penalty of 5, 8, or 10% scare you too much. As long as the numbers work out, it may make sense to tap into your pension before you tap to your Social Security. The next thing you should consider is your medical. How are you going to cover your medical bills or insurance premiums if you retire earlier and no longer being covered by the state? Well, if you have a VEBA account, then you have some money to get you by for a while. And if you have unused sick leave saved up, you actually convert that into your VEBA. Now, it's a 4-to-1 exchange, but in doing so, you're avoiding paying all the taxes of that money. And when you use the money in the VEBA for medical expenses, there's still no taxes due. So money in a VEBA or HSA is the most tax-efficient account that there is out there. Contributions go in pre-tax, they go tax deferred, and they come out tax-free as long as you use it for medical expenses. And if you don't have enough money saved up in the VEBA to get you by until you can get onto Medicare, then you're either looking at getting a part-time job to help cover those expenses or possibly looking at drawing more money from your retirement account. And depending on how much you're really taking out from there, that may not be the best approach. So many people actually choose to go back and sub for the school districts just a few days a week to get enough money to cover their medical premiums, or they can go ahead and work at a place like Starbucks or Home Depot. There's a lot of places out there that actually cover part of your medical premiums for part-time workers. So go ahead and look around at some of those places if that's what you're considering. Now, all those steps may seem a little bit overwhelming. Most people are going to put the time in to actually look at them all to make an appropriate decision, or they're going to act emotionally and pull the trigger without checking everything out first. So before you make any move, make sure you're consulting some kind of financial professional that can actually put some kind of financial plan in place and take a look at all your options to see how well this decision is going to affect you in the future. This way, you can actually get a professional recommendation and actually see it on black and white if it makes sense to retire early or if you have to keep on working. All right, so now to our listener question of the day. So this question actually came from a comment from a recent YouTube video, and this person is asking, what is the maximum service credit I can accumulate, and how does it affect my retirement income? All right, so in Washington, if you're on a member of Plan 2, Plan 3, there actually is no maximum service credit that you can work. So they never cap you. Back when Plan 1 was around, they would cap people at 30 years of service, and then they had a different formula that would go in place after that. And there's a decision that needed to be made at 30 years if you wanted those post 30 years retirement income to count towards the formula, or if you just wanted to get like fixed interest on it. So that was Plan 1. For Plans 2 and Plan 3, there is no cap. So if you want to work, 30 years, 35 years, 40 years, no one's going to stop you. You can still earn service credits for those years, and it will reflect in a higher pension down the road. So in short, the more service credits you have, the higher your pension income is going to be, because your pension is strictly based off of years or service credits that you've earned. Multiply that by the average of your top 5 years of income. So 30 years of service in Plan 1, which pays 1%, means I'm going to get 1 times 30 years, 30%. And it's 30% of what? It's 30% of the average of my top 5 years of income. So if on average I made about $100,000 for a span of 5 years, 100,000 would be what you'd use, and you'd take that, multiply by your percentage, 30%, gives you $30,000 per year. Now, every time you do the formula, that's just option 1. That's the full pension benefit. Then if you want to elect a survivor, those are going to be a reduced income. So 30,000 is if it was just you, or if you chose not to give any of your pension, to your spouse. If you wanted to, then you take a reduced benefit. You can only get, 28, 27,000, whatever the actuarial table will say. And it's also based on the age gap between you and your spouse. But for the most part, when you're looking strictly at service credits and how it affects retirement income, the more you have, the more income you're going to have down the road. Now, a key part is knowing when it's time to call it quits. Every time you look at it and you say, hey, I'm just going to work one more year, it's always going to look better, because it's one more year of earning your full salary. It's one more year of that you're accruing your service credits, so your pension is going to be higher. The longer you work, the more you make, the more pension income you'll have in the end. But at some point, you got to say enough is enough. It's time to start doing what I want to do on my own terms, or pursue a different passion or hobby that you now have. So don't get caught up in the whole keep going, because more and more is better. More money is better, but at what point are you willing to set aside so you can start enjoying your life on your terms? Now, if you want more information, just like you've listened to here, I've got a free retirement planning course set up for Washington State employees. The link to join is in the description below. It's free to join currently, so feel free to jump on there. Recently, I shared an exclusive video showing that how I made about 37% over the past 11 months in 2024 using a fairly low risk strategy, and I kept track of it all, and I detailed it to you in that video. That video is only for members of the group, so feel free to join if you want to check that out. And until next time, remember that your future depends on what you do today. All right, before I sign off, just a real quick legal disclosure that we're required to say as licensed fiduciary advisors. So remember that this is a podcast. It is designed for educational and entertainment purposes only. I don't know you personally, therefore I cannot give you any personal advice. So please don't take anything that we say on the show as being personal, financial, legal, or tax advice. If you want that kind of stuff, make sure you seek out a professional so they can help you with the strategies and investments that are right for you. Also, please remember that despite the name of our show, we are in no way associated with Washington State or the Department of Guidance Systems or any other Washington employer. We're a private-owned firm that specializes in working with Washington State employees, which is why we know so much about this stuff. So remember, we don't work for the state in any way, shape, or form, so please don't confuse us as being an official representative of the state. All right, that's it for the legal stuff. I'll catch you guys all next time.